Welcome back for another edition of Coffee with Kdub. Excited to have you back. Last week was a blast. New setting, new set of questions, and I am excited to get going with you guys today. So here we go. That's a good question right there in terms of tech and disruptive. I think a lot of the tech has been disruptive, and here's why. Hitters are drowning in information, but they're starving for wisdom. There's a lot of guys that are sitting there and they're scouring over the data and they're looking for that advantage. And I get it. But at the end of the day, it's a person, it's a human being holding the bat that have a mind, and they have a powerful tool, which is their brain, in order to have purpose to what they're doing and an understanding of an approach and a plan. So what's the most disruptive? I think a lot of it has, because in my opinion, since this has come into the game, a lot of this tech and a lot of this data, I'm not convinced that it's helping hitters, because since it's come in, hitting has gone downhill. And the data, if we're talking about data, that has proven that since 2012 or in and around those years when all this tech had started coming into play, hitting has gotten worse, in my opinion. So a lot of it has been disruptive, and I think as coaches we have to remember that there's a human being there, and we ask good questions, we be a good listener, and we try to meet them where they're at in their career, the style that they have, their thought process, their language, and that's how you produce a great hitter. I'm not a huge drill guy, but I think drills are, if you specifically give drills to a specific problem, absolutely they can work. In general terms, if you're dropping your back shoulder without looking at you or haven't seen you or talked to you, a general rule of thumb is leverage is key. So most of the time when we drop our back shoulder or we're doing stuff like that, we're losing leverage. So when guys lose leverage, a lot of the times is I'll create a high tee or a high toss and try to have them hit stuff up here, because if we can hit this ball at the top of the strike zone, then we can stay in the same leverage and hit all the way down. The simple point is try to hit your height. I'm 6'2", so I try to hit 6'2". 5'11", try to hit 5'11". If I'm 6'2", and I don't hit 6'2", meanwhile I drop my back shoulder, now all of a sudden now I'm 5'11", 5'10". So if that makes sense, do a lot of stuff, high tee, high toss, that you're here. Whatever you got to think about. If you got to think about getting on top of the ball, being directable, I don't care. Just practice your leverage and hitting your height, and that should at least get you on that journey back to fixing your problem. That's a good question. Frustration makes us, forces us, it seems like, to do things that we don't want to do. I'm all for less is more. But we also have to understand that the frustration of what where that frustration is coming from could lead to more. Just letting it out. And listen, I'm all for, hey, if you got to go down the cage and you got to get on your Tanner tee and you got to just rip some balls just to get it out, I'm all for it. But there comes a point where we have to put a lid on that, and we have to dial it back in and lock in and say, okay, what do I need to do to get back? Why do I need to do what I need to do? And a lot of it is less is better than more. So I guess there's a two-part answer to that question. Is if you got to let some frustration out, go ahead and do it. But I would suggest that less is a lot better in that situation, because it allows you to focus, lock in on your purpose of what you're doing, and then stay consistent through that. And last thing to that, I like to break down the season into 7 days. Monday's opening day, Sunday's the last day of the season. So if you're frustrated today on a Sunday, let's go ahead and get that frustration out of the way, perhaps Sunday night. Monday we have a focused plan on what we do, and do that every single day. And on Sunday, let's see where you're at. You're probably going to be in a better spot 7 days later because you have purpose. And oh, by the way, you're going to be doing less every day, but you're going to be getting more by the time Sunday comes. Absolutely, I felt rushed. I remember the first time I went to college and saw something above 90 miles an hour. I felt like the guy was throwing a million. And I've also felt it later in my career. So absolutely, it's a common thing. You're not the only one going through it, I promise you. But it all has to come down to timing, right? And how do we get that timing? Well, we have to practice hitting velocity. There's batting machines out there. I'm a big supporter of the hack attack. Get on the hack attack and go ahead and they call it the fuzz machine at the next level. Crank it up. Don't crank it up all the way. Don't go from 60 miles an hour to 90 miles an hour. Go up a little bit faster, a little bit harder as you go. And you just have to get used to it, because the more that you see it, it's going to be easier to time up. You may only see one fast pitcher in your league, so you only have to be around it for 3 or 4 innings or 5 or 6 innings. But as you get older, certainly you're going to see a lot more velocity. So get on that machine and learn to be slow and early with your load. Learn that timing is everything. Timing is the #1 thing in hitting, and how you slow that fast speed down is learn to be on time with it. And I promise you, when you learn to be on time with it, because you practice it more and more, and all of a sudden that 90 miles an hour, for example, feels like 85. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Coffee with Kdub. It's been a blast to be with you. Great questions, keep them coming. Head on over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/kwbaseball. Follow us on Instagram to submit your questions every Sunday. That's over at kwbaseball. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you. And until next time, good batting.